What would you do if one night at a crowded restaurant, you looked across the room and saw your ex-wife surrounded by three children who looked unmistakably like you? Would you run away from the truth or run toward the family you never knew you had? Tonight, we're telling the story of Solomon Carter, a millionaire who spent years building an empire until a twist of fate forced him to choose between his legacy and the three little stars who would change his world forever. Solomon Carter stood with his back to the city, the midnight skyline sparkling like a promise he'd long since stopped believing in. He'd conquered every summit, venture capital, Wall Street, real estate, even a few tech unicorns. "You're a legend," people told him, "a king among men." The truth? Most nights he felt more like a shadow with a golden nameplate. His assistant, Keisha, lingered in the doorway. "Sol, your table's ready at Le Bistro. Board wants you early tonight." Her tone was respectful but weary. 15 years, and she'd seen every shade of his ambition. He nodded, grabbing his jacket. "Thanks, Keish. Go home. Get some rest." She smiled softly, then hesitated. "One thing, this letter came for you. Legal stationery." She didn't say more, just set it down. But Solomon's chest tightened at the name on the return address. Monroe and Chase, his ex-wife's firm. He slid the envelope in his pocket, unopened. He'd convinced himself the past was dead, yet it still haunted him, in the echo of a voice, in the way he always left the porch light on, just in case. Le Bistro was the kind of place where power dined quietly, chandeliers glimmering above hushed deals, crystal clinking, waiters blending into shadow. Tonight, Solomon sat at the head of a long mahogany table, listening to forced laughter, old war stories, and empty plans. It was all noise until he saw her. At a table by the window, surrounded by warmth, was Amara. Her hair was shorter than he remembered, her laughter lower but richer. She was radiant, animated, listening intently to three children clustered around her, all no more than 6. Something in Solomon's soul twisted. He could see it from across the room. The boys' long hands, the twin girls' sharp chins, that spark in their eyes. They could have been a painting of his childhood, if he'd ever let himself be young. He barely heard the board member beside him. "Mr. Carter, you look like you've seen a ghost." Solomon excused himself, too quickly drawing attention, but unable to stop himself. He circled the dining room, every step feeling less real, until he was standing at Amara's table. She looked up, smile vanishing. "Solomon?" she said softly. "Not cold, just careful." The boy looked up. His eyes were Solomon's eyes. One of the girls tilted her head, examining him like a puzzle she almost knew how to solve. Solomon tried to steady his breathing. "Are these—" Amara's expression hardened, her jaw set with old pain. "They're my children." "Mama, who is that?" one of the twins asked. The girl's voice was high and sweet, echoes of lullabies he'd never sung. "Just someone I used to know, baby," Amara answered, her eyes never leaving Solomon's face. Solomon's mind raced back through time. 6 years since the divorce. 5 since he'd last seen her. Really seen her, not just glimpsed her from a headline or in a dream. "Can we talk?" he managed to say, voice barely above a whisper. Amara shook her head. You made your choice, Solomon. You built your world and left us behind." Solomon felt his heart pounding, the old excuses dying on his tongue. "I never knew. You never told me." Her gaze was ice. "I called. I wrote. Your assistant, before Keisha, said you were too busy for old business. I got the message." He staggered back a step, feeling the years press in. The boy, meanwhile, stared at him unblinking. "What are their names?" Solomon asked, desperate for something, anything to hold on to. "Suri and Zara are the twins," Amara replied quietly. "And that's Micah." Solomon nodded. "They're beautiful." He wanted to say more, but the words clung to his teeth. Guilt, regret, and awe collided inside him. "Amara, please," he whispered, "let me talk to you." For their sake. She studied him for a long time, then pulled a card from her purse. "Call me tomorrow, not for me, for them, if you're ready to actually be present." As he returned to his table, Solomon's world spun. His empire, once shining and indestructible, suddenly felt brittle, a castle built on sand. All he could hear, even above the boardroom chatter, was the echo of three children's laughter. He barely slept that night, replaying every moment of their marriage, every fight, every missed call, every time he'd chosen business over love. By dawn, he was in his office, the unopened letter from Amara trembling in his hands. He called Keisha. Did, did Amara ever try to reach me before you? There was a pause. Yes, Solomon, a lot. I thought you knew. Your old assistant. She blocked the calls, returned the letters. I found them in a drawer after I started, but by then, Solomon felt the world crack. He'd pushed away the only thing that ever mattered. 3 children, 3 lives he'd missed. Could he ever make it right? At noon, he walked into Amara's office, nervous as a boy, clutching the old letter and his hope like a lifeline. She sat behind a battered desk, glasses perched on her nose, surrounded by photos, school plays, messy cake faces, tiny handprints. She looked up as he entered. I didn't think you'd come. He sat, his hands shaking. If I'd known, Amara. She cut him off gently. Don't. It's not about what you would have done. It's about what you do now. Solomon took a deep breath. Tell me about them, please. She opened a photo album, sliding it across. Zuri is the artist. She paints everything, including the walls. Zara is our scientist, always asking questions. Micah, he's kind, gentle, always looking out for his sisters. Solomon's throat closed as he saw their faces, his own childhood looking back at him. I never lied to them, Amara said softly. I told them their father was someone I loved very much, but he had to leave. Tears slid down Solomon's face. Let me know them, Amara. Let me be their father. I'll give up everything if I have to. She shook her head. Don't promise what you're not sure you can deliver. They need stability, not a hero who'll vanish again. Solomon reached across, taking her hand. I can't change the past, but I can start today. Amara hesitated, then nodded. They have a recital next Saturday. Zara's playing the violin. If you want to meet them, for real, be there. He pressed the photo album to his chest as he left. For the first time in years, hope bloomed inside him, raw and wild and terrifying. That night, Solomon called his lawyer, rearranged his entire schedule, and sat by his window until dawn, tracing the shapes of 3 tiny faces against the city lights. He was finally ready to be the father he should have been, and maybe, just maybe, earn a second chance at the only kind of empire that mattered. It's easy to judge from the outside, to assume that success and family always walk hand in hand. But as Solomon learned, sometimes we don't know what we're missing until it's staring us right in the face. The question isn't, will you be forgiven? It's, will you forgive yourself enough to start again? If this first chapter moved you, hit like, drop a comment, and let us know your own story of second chances. The auditorium buzzed with the expectant noise only children and proud parents can create. Solomon Carter stood in the back, his heart thudding with a nervousness he hadn't felt since pitching his first startup. This time, there were no scripts, no safety nets, only the possibility of redemption. On the makeshift stage, a sea of tiny violinists in mismatched shoes prepared for their moment. Among them, Zara stood a little straighter, her hair in twin puffs, her small hands clinging to her violin with white-knuckle intensity. Amara sat in the front row, flanked by Zuri and Micah, all dressed in their best. The girls in bright dresses, Micah in a miniature suit and tie. Solomon saw them before they saw him, and his heart ached at all the moments he'd missed. Tying shoes, calming nerves, fixing hair gone wild. The music teacher tapped her baton, and the concert began. Zara's first notes wavered, searching for courage, then found it in the eyes of her mother. By the third bar, her sound filled the room, clear, bold, and achingly beautiful. It was more than talent. It was a cry to be seen. Solomon felt tears prick his eyes. He remembered recitals in dusty church basements, his own mother in the front row, one of the only black women in the crowd, applauding as if he'd played Carnegie Hall. He'd always promised he'd do the same for his children one day. The thought pierced him with guilt and longing. After the final note, Zara scanned the crowd. Her gaze found Amara, who blew her a kiss. Then almost instinctively, Zara's eyes drifted farther back and locked onto Solomon. Their gazes met, the world shrinking to just the two of them for a heartbeat. Zara frowned, then tilted her head, puzzled but not afraid. In the post-recital chaos, parents streamed forward with flowers, hugs, and cameras. Solomon waited uncertain as Amara gathered the triplets, kneeling to zip up Zara's coat and wipe chocolate from Zuri's cheek. Zara tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, that man is here again. The one from the restaurant." Amara glanced back, lips pressed tight. "He's a friend. Remember I told you he might come to hear you play?" Zara's eyes stayed fixed on Solomon. "He looks sad," she said quietly. Amara squeezed her hand. "Maybe he is." Solomon approached, hands trembling, forcing a smile. "Zara, you played beautifully. I hope you don't mind me saying so." Zara studied him with the wary intelligence only children possess. "Thank you. Do you play music too?" He shook his head a little too quickly. "No, but my mom used to. She loved music." Zuri piped up. "I'm the artist. Want to see my picture?" She held up a crumpled drawing, 3 kids, 1 woman, and Solomon realized, a man standing just a little apart. "It's wonderful," he said, voice thick. "Do you draw every day?" "Every day," Zuri said proudly. "Mom says art helps you feel things you can't say." Solomon turned to Micah, who was silent but watching intently. "And what about you, young man?" Micah hesitated, eyes flicking to his sisters. "I help," he said at last. "I help everyone." Solomon felt the world tilt. His own father had never said those words, never once told him he was proud of him, never showed up at anything. Solomon vowed right then that these kids would never have to wonder. He knelt, heart in his throat. "Would it be okay if I joined you for ice cream? I'd love to celebrate Zara's concert." The triplets looked at Amara. She weighed something invisible, then nodded. "1 scoop each. Let's go." They walked a curious parade to a corner shop. The children chattered about their favorite flavors. Zuri insisted on double chocolate, Zara preferred strawberry, and Micah, after much consideration, chose vanilla with everything on top. At a sticky table by the window, Solomon listened as the girls argued over which ice cream topping was the best, and Micah methodically built a tower from napkin dispensers. Amara watched, arms folded, jaw tight. Her guard was up, but her eyes softened as she saw the triplets' delight. For the first time, Solomon noticed the lines of exhaustion on Amara's face, the way she flinched whenever the door chimed, how she kept a hand on Micah's shoulder as if grounding herself. He wondered about all the late nights and hard choices she'd faced alone. He tried to picture what her life had been like without him. No alimony, no child support, just a single mom, 3 kids, in a world that didn't care. He felt a fresh wave of shame. "I owe you so much," he whispered to Amara as the kids dug into their sundaes. She shook her head. "You don't owe me. You owe them. I made my peace. But you have to show up, Solomon. You have to mean it." He nodded. "I do. I know words aren't enough, but I want to be here. For them. For you. Whatever it takes." Micah looked up, eyes serious. "Are you going to come to my soccer game too?" Solomon smiled, tears burning at the back of his throat. "If you'll have me, I'll be there." Zuri pointed her spoon at him. "And to my art show?" Solomon nodded. "I wouldn't miss it." For the rest of the afternoon, he was just another dad. Awkward, overeager, completely out of his element, but so deeply grateful for every messy, sticky second. He let them decorate his suit with napkin doodles, cheered as Micah scored an imaginary goal, and posed for Zuri's endless requests for "just one more picture, please." When the sun began to dip, Amara gathered the children to leave. Solomon watched as she herded them into a battered minivan, doors held closed by hope and duct tape. As she buckled seat belts and kissed foreheads, he saw everything he'd missed and ached with the knowledge that he could never buy his way into their memories. He walked home alone that night, replaying every moment, trying to memorize the sound of their laughter, the weight of Micah's hand in his, the fearless way Zuri looked at the world. He called his mother from the quiet of his penthouse, surprising even himself. "Mama," he said softly, "did you ever regret the choices you made for me?" His mother's voice was soft but steady. "Every day, but you were always worth it." He hung up, staring out at the city. He'd always measured success in dollars. in deals. Now, for the first time, he wondered if he could measure it in something messier, something harder, like forgiveness and love and the courage to show up. The next days blurred into a hopeful routine. Solomon rearranged his meetings, made excuses to the board, and showed up for everything he could. Soccer games where Micah ran the wrong way, art shows with Zuri's wild colors, and every single school pickup Amara would allow. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes the triplets were shy, other times bold. Sometimes Amara was warm, other times distant. But slowly, as spring bled into summer, Solomon saw the walls begin to lower. One Saturday, the triplets visited his apartment for the first time. He'd spent days making it kid-proof, stocking the fridge with juice boxes, hiding sharp corners with foam, and buying every toy he could find. The children exploded with excitement, racing down the halls, jumping on the couch, painting the windows with washable markers. Solomon joined them, laughing until his sides ached. At one point, he caught Amara watching from the doorway, a small, guarded smile on her lips. Micah tugged on Solomon's sleeve. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Solomon knelt, looking him in the eye. "You can come back anytime you want. This is your home, too." That night, after the triplets had gone, Amara lingered. The city glowed behind her, and for a moment the distance between them shrank. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for trying, for not giving up." Solomon nodded, emotion choking him. "I missed so much, Amara, but I want to spend the rest of my life making it up to them, and to you if you'll let me." She hesitated, then placed a hand on his arm. "Start with tomorrow. That's enough." Solomon watched her leave, feeling hope for the first time in years, a fragile, precious thing, but real. As the city slept, he sat by his window and made a silent promise to the three little stars who'd changed his world. He would never let them down again. Sometimes the road to forgiveness isn't a straight line. It's full of bumps and missteps and painful truths. But if there's one thing Solomon's journey proves, it's that every step you take toward your family, no matter how clumsy or late, is a step toward healing. If you felt that, please hit like, share, and let us know. What would you risk for a second chance at family? Summer painted the city with golden heat, the kind that melts away old habits and softens even the most stubborn hearts. At Solomon Carter's new family home, a place that looked nothing like the sleek, impersonal penthouse he once prized, the walls now bloomed with crayon masterpieces and the floor creaked beneath the wild games of three children discovering what it meant to belong. Sunday mornings became their sacred time. Amara would bring the triplets, Zara, Zuri, and Micah, over for breakfast, and the kitchen would erupt with the music of laughter, the clang of forks against plates, and the symphony of pancakes sizzling on the stove. Solomon was clumsy in the kitchen, but the triplets didn't care if the pancakes were lopsided or a little burned. What mattered was that he was there, apron on, sleeves rolled up, singing along to whatever song Zuri played on the old speaker. Micah started calling him Dad without hesitation, his trust as easy as breathing. Zuri tested boundaries, asking questions that made even Amara pause. "Why weren't you here before? Are you going to leave again?" And Solomon never shied away from the truth. He told them about his mistakes, about choosing work, pride, and fear over family, about wanting to change, not with words, but with every act, every day. Zara, the quietest of the three, began to follow him into his study, curling up on the rug with her violin, while Solomon worked nearby. Sometimes as she'd ask about the cities he'd visited, the stories behind the photographs on his shelves, and he'd realize how much he still had to share, and how much he still had to learn. Amara's presence in his life was both balm and challenge. Some days she'd stay after dropping the kids off, sharing coffee on the back porch while the triplets built forts out of old boxes. They talked about schools, summer camps, doctor's appointments. Other days she'd keep her distance, polite but wary, drawing invisible lines to protect what she'd built alone. Then in late July came the storm that would change everything. It was supposed to be a simple family outing, a picnic in Central Park. The weather app had promised clear skies, but just as the triplets finished their sandwiches, thunder rolled in, sudden and fierce. Amara rushed to pack up, shepherding the kids beneath a playground awning. Solomon sprinted back from the car, soaked, holding the forgotten violin case over his head like a shield. They huddled together as the rain battered the city, Amara cradling Zara, Solomon wrapping his jacket around Micah and Zuri. Lightning cracked the sky, and for a moment the triplets were silent, clutching each other with wide eyes. Solomon caught Amara's gaze, raw, unguarded, terrified. In that instant, all the old hurts, the years of loneliness and pride, dissolved into a single unspoken question. Are we a family, or are we just pretending? When the storm eased, Solomon pulled each child close. I used to think being brave meant never being scared, he told them, voice trembling. But real bravery is showing up, even when you're afraid. I promise I will always show up. For every storm, for every sunny day, for all of you. Back at home, they dried off and made hot chocolate, crowding together on the living room floor. The triplets built a tent from blankets, inviting Solomon and Amara inside. Micah declared it, the Carter Fortress, no work, no phones, just us. And for the first time, Solomon let go of everything outside those four blanket walls. For the first time, Amara's hand found his, and she didn't let go. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a rhythm that felt nothing like the life Solomon once knew. He set boundaries at work, no calls after 6, no meetings on weekends, no more chasing headlines. He traded boardrooms for PTA meetings, business trips for bedtime stories. One morning, he found Zuri painting a mural on the backyard fence. I want everyone to know we live here, she explained, dabbing the wood with bright pink hearts and yellow stars. We're not hiding anymore. He knelt beside her, picking up a brush. Let's make it the brightest house on the block. Slowly, even Amara's guard began to drop. She let Solomon help with homework, trusted him to pick up the kids alone, laughed with him over burnt dinners and soccer game mishaps. She saw that he was no longer the man who ran from love, but a man who was fighting for it every day. The hardest test came at the end of summer. Zara collapsed at a music lesson, her breathing shallow, her face pale. The rush to the hospital blurred into hours of terror and waiting, doctors and alarms and the cold panic of maybe losing what you've just found. Solomon stayed by Zara's side, holding her hand, whispering stories from his own childhood until the medicine took hold and her breathing eased. Amara never left, her eyes locked on her daughter, her grip on Solomon's arm fierce and desperate. When the doctor finally smiled and said, "She'll be okay," something inside both parents broke, then healed, just a little. They stood in the corridor, exhausted, clinging to each other in relief. "You can go home, I'll stay," Amara whispered, but Solomon shook his head. "We stay together. That's what families do." From then on, the world shifted. Amara and Solomon didn't call it love. They weren't ready for old labels, for old wounds. But they called it family, and that was enough. As the triplets started school that fall, Solomon and Amara walked them to the gates together, hand in hand, 3 backpacks bobbing ahead of them. Zuri raced to the art room, Micah to the playground, Zara to music class. Before disappearing inside, they turned arms wide, shouting, "Bye, Mom! Bye, Dad!" Solomon watched them go, heart full. He felt Amara's hand squeeze his, and he squeezed back. "We did it," he whispered. "We really did it." Later that day, Amara and Solomon sat in the kitchen, coffee growing cold between them, the house echoing with the peace of children at school. Amara looked at him, a long, searching gaze, and said, "I never thought we'd get here. Not after everything." Solomon smiled. "I didn't either, but I'm grateful. For you, for them, for second chances." She reached across the table, her fingers twining with his. "Let's not waste them." As autumn leaves drifted down outside the window, the Carter family, messy, imperfect, hard-won, finally came home to themselves. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from winning boardroom battles or collecting trophies, but from showing up, messy, broken, hopeful, and choosing love day after day. Solomon's journey proves that it's never too late to rebuild, never too late to earn forgiveness, and never too late to become the parent, the partner, the human you were always meant to be. If this story touched you, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful, real-life inspired tales. because sometimes what seems like an ending is just the beginning of a family's brightest chapter. Thank you for being here. And remember, no matter how lost you feel, love can always bring you home.